Hello wolves! So today we're gonna talk about my favorite books of 2019. I tried to pick 5 books, couldn't manage, 10 books, couldn't, 1 per month, so 12, couldn't. So I have here 15 books to show you. So the first book I'm going to talk about is the second book I've read in 2019, which is actually another book and not a physical book that I've read. Whatever. This is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. Gave it 5 stars. It was so inspiring. I loved it. The guy telling the story was actually the guy who wrote that story, and it was just like fun to listen to. And it was so like mind-blowing in a way, like what he was saying was actually really happening in my life. I was like, oh my gosh, I really do that. Actually, that's bad, I guess. So I really did enjoy it. The second favorite book of 2019 I'm going to talk about is a book that I've read for the Peloton, and this is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Harden. Oh my god, this is amazing. It has Russian folklore in it, stories that I grew up with. It has a wintry setting, it's magical, etc, etc. I loved it so freaking much. I would recommend it to everyone, even if you're not into fantasy, if you're not into Russian folklore or whatever. I would recommend it to everyone. So yeah, it's so magic. So Naomi Novik, you know, best-selling author of Uprooted, she said, a beautiful deep winter story full of magic and monsters and the sharp edges of growing up, which is basically how to summarize it. I loved it so much. I cannot wait for continuing, you know, with the series. So yeah. The next book is also one that I've read for the Peloton, and this is Even the Darkest Stars by Heather Fawcett. It is YA fantasy with the wintry setting as well. It was so magical. I love the story in it, and I love the quest they were on, and also I love the little foxy thing in the book. It has everything that you would wish for polar fantasy, I want to say. It has adventure, it has friendship, it has trust, it has lies, it has family, it has wintry settings, it has an animal, it has everything. And for instance, Evelyn Sky said, Fawcett brings snow-whipped mountains and their baleful secrets alive in this magical atmospheric debut. It was very atmospheric, so I have to admit that. Kamsen has always dreamed of becoming one of the Emperor's royal explorers, the elite climbers, tasked with mapping the wintry mountainous empire and spying on its enemies. She knows she could be the best in the world if only someone would give her a chance. And it's about like fighting for what you want, etc, etc. Really enjoyed it so much. I still need to read the sequel, but I'm actually keeping it for the Peloton of 2020. So yeah. And the next one is this one, so The Fork, the Witch and the Worm, Tales from Algasia, so by Christopher Paolini, so the writer of The Inheritance Cycle, so Aragon, etc. You can see all the covers here. It was so heartwarming to get back into that world and to read about it. It's basically a book full of tales, and you have 3 tales, The Fork, the Witch and the Worm, and it was just overwhelming to get back into that world. I really want to reread Aragon, The Inheritance Cycle. I have to get the books in English because I want to read them in English and not in French, because I actually discovered this series in French, whatever. But it's so short, I read it in no time. And you know, there is a lot of space in the book. I don't know if you can see, but meaning you can really go through that book in no time. And if you're a fan of the Aragon series, you will definitely love that one. Then I fell in love with Never Cry Wolf, which is it was written by Farley Mowat, and it's actually telling the truth about wolves. It was like telling you that wolves are not monsters, they are family packs kind of thing. They look after each other and they have rules, etc. They're not just monsters there to try to kill your sheep or to kill you or whatever. And I really loved it. It was super emotional, I feel. At some point I wanted to cry at some point because the audiobook was actually really well done, and I really loved it. It's not like a fantasy, it's not a sci-fi or whatever, it's something else, and I really recommend that if you're a fan of wolves, or if you want to hear more truth about stuff, or you know, wolves in general. I really recommend that one. I really fell in love with it. So yeah, and it's not because I'm a fan of wolves, you know, it was really good. Then Brief Answers to the Big Questions by Stephen Hawking. I love that book. It was so fun to read. I mean, I discovered how funny he actually was and how he has a good sense of humor. I really love, and the way he talks about himself, sometimes I felt like he wasn't taking himself seriously, and I really loved it. Like, I cannot imagine how hard it is for those smart, very smart people living among us, not understanding anything of what they're doing, or not understanding anything, or not having the same passion as them, because they're actually studying the beginning of everything. Like, I'm not a believer, like I don't believe in God, etc. My God is science, you could say. So if you're not the same, if you believe in your God, etc., that's fine. I'm not criticizing it, or I'm not saying it's wrong, whatever. But I believe in science. And it's insane how sometimes when I talk science about people, I'm not considering myself a very smart person. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I love science. I love astrophysics. I'm fascinated by how the universe was created, etc., etc. And sometimes when I talk about that to people, they're like, yeah, so what? We're here, so it doesn't really matter how that happened, or it doesn't matter what's gonna happen, whatever. It shocks me. And I cannot imagine how it is for those very, very, very smart people to live among us, us little people not understanding everything of the physics, etc. But I'm not gonna say it answered everything. It was just like asking you questions like, can we predict the future? What is inside a black hole? Is there other intelligent life in the universe? Should we colonize space, etc., etc.? Really interesting. It's short. You could read it in no time. I really do love it. I really want to get more into science books this year. So yeah. Then we had Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. It was such a surprise. I didn't expect to love that book so much. It is a YA sci-fi book. I was discovering actually Brandon Sanderson through that book. I really want to give his other series a try. I still need to read Starsight, so the sequel to that one. It is so a sci-fi. It's basically the story of a girl who wants to be like a pilot. She wants to pilot those things in order to protect her people, etc. But she cannot be one actually, because her dad actually did something bad. He escaped when he was supposed to be on duty, kind of thing, so he was called a traitor. So they don't want her to be a pilot because they are investing so much money into those pilots in order to save the people, and they don't want to invest in her because they don't want her to be like her father, which is so not fair, but whatever. And she's gonna fight that, etc. It's so fast-paced. I read it in no time, even if it's a chunker, so I would definitely recommend it. If you're not into sci-fi but want to try sci-fi, I think it's also a good start, because it's sci-fi but not like heavy sci-fi when you need to be like in the sci-fi world in order to understand all the scientific words, etc., etc., if you know what I mean. So I really, really recommend that one as well. Then this is obviously not a surprise, but In an Absent Dream by Shannon McGuire. You know I'm in love with the Wayward Children series. I keep recommending it to everyone, like fucking everyone. I'm telling you, I love that series so much. It's so whimsical, it's so magical, it's so something I could relate to. Not that I haven't been to another world, but I also did, like, you know, with Hogwarts, etc. We all took, like, not all took, but whatever, the Sorting Hat quiz, and you can actually do pretty much the same. Like, there is no quiz in it, but you can pretty much say if you like, you could tell like if you are a nonsense kind of world person, or a sense if you love logic, if you don't like logic things, etc., logical things, etc., etc. It was really interesting. You could actually find a map on the internet, and you could see when Narnia is, where Wonderland is, Neverland is, etc., etc. You can see all the different worlds where they are on the map, and maybe according to what you prefer in magical worlds, you could tell and see which word will fit you, etc. It's really interesting. I'm a fan of it. I'm a nonsense illogical person, so I would definitely go in that kind of world. And oh my gosh, I'm just in love with that series, and the covers are all so magical and perfect. This one I think is my favorite. So yeah, you have to read it. Like, if you haven't read the Wayward Children series, you have to read it. Like, you have to read it. Then we have A Natural History of Dragons by Mary Brennan. This is also a new favorite. I still have to continue with the series. It is a fantasy book. It also has some historic and fiction in it because it's basically going through the story of a girl who wanted to be a naturalist. She wanted to study dragons, but she can't do it because she's a girl. So the only thing she can do is bear children or learn how to sew, whatever, and do like girly kind of stuff. But she doesn't want that. She wants adventure, she wants dragons, etc, etc. And dragons are real. Like, they're living with tiny like elfic dragons kind of thing, so they are real. But there are other very big dragons, dangerous dragons, and she wants to study them. And for that, she's gonna find a husband who will allow her to do so. And it's really, I loved everything about it. I read it in no time. It was so powerful. I love the writing style. I love the twist. I love everything in it. That's also another book I will keep recommending to everyone. Nonetheless, like, the cover is absolutely amazing. It's gorgeous. But the story itself was just amazing too. I really could connect with the character and see myself. Not that we struggle exactly the same thing nowadays, but because I'm that type of person, people tend to say, oh, you cannot do that because of that. You know what I mean? Like, I connect with her on so many levels, and yeah, I loved it. Singer by Sebastian de Castel. It was such a surprise. I didn't expect to love that book. I expected to really enjoy it, but not to love that book. Like, the magic system in it was so interesting. Like, you're living among people. I want to say, like, kind of Viking-y or whatever. I had that vibes in it. But the thing is that everyone has some kind of magic, and when you grind, you kind of training yourself in order to control that magic. And apparently the main character is growing and losing his magic little by little. And when you don't have magic, if you fail the test, you are actually only allowed to do one thing: serve a family. And he doesn't want to do that, but he apparently has no choice because he's losing his magic. And there is also an animal, or a colony animal, whatever, in it. So sassy animals, so like quirky, etc. I just love the animal in that book. It's freaking awesome. So I would definitely recommend, if you love YA fantasy with a lot of humor, etc, etc, unexpected things. I really enjoyed that one. Then we have Vicious by V. Schwab. It was also such a surprise. I ate that book in like no time. The way it's written, because it goes back in time, like it goes like 4 days ago, 4 years ago, 6 hours ago, blah blah blah, and all the time, like you're getting back and forward all the time. It was so interesting. I loved it. And this is basically the story of Victor and Ellie, or Eli, I'm not sure how you say that. They started out as college roommates, brilliant, arrogant, lonely boys who recognize the same ambition in each other, a shared interest in adrenaline, near-death experiences, and seemingly supernatural events reveal an intriguing possibility that under the right conditions, someone could develop extraordinary abilities. But when their thesis moves from the academy to the experimental, things go horribly wrong. It was the hell of a ride. I loved it. So I have the arc here. So this is Her Crown of Fire by Renee April. I got that arc, I cannot remember when it was, but the book is actually out, and there is sequel, so I should get the book and the sequel when it comes out. I mean, the sequel comes out, this one. Oh, you got me. I really enjoyed the magic system in it. It is like, I want to say urban fantasy at the beginning because it's happening in all worlds, and then the main character is moving to a magical world. But I want to say high fantasy because everything in that magical world is different from ours, and I loved everything. So she's gonna end up in that magical world, and she's gonna have to go to a specific school, and she's like, I don't want to go to school, but I want to learn stuff. And the crazy thing about it is that if you have some magic, if you have some power, you have to go to that school. That's an obligation. But the thing is that even if it's an obligation, you have to pay your debt, because for every day you go there, you have to pay a certain amount of money. So by the end of your degree or whatever, you have to start paying your debt. And I'm just like, that's insane, because that's an obligation to go there, and you are trading building depth, you know what I mean? And everything was so interesting in that book because it was so different from other fantasy, and even the subject she was actually studying at school, they were different from other subjects you will have like in Harry Potter or in other fantasy books. So that was also very intriguing. And she's gonna go into that magical world, but the only thing she has in mind is actually to save her best friend who has no magic but who has ended up in that world as well, which is very dangerous because no non-magic human born kids can end up in that world. And it's fast-paced, etc, etc. Really enjoyed it. This is her debut novel, I think, so if you want to give it a try, it was a really good book for me. I really enjoyed it, so yeah. Then we have that one, so The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, that was recommended to me, to everyone, by Jade over at GW Reads so many times, and it's so good. It's just so good. It's a middle grade fantasy book. It has to do with Baba Yaga, who lives with Marinka, and they're in a house with chicken legs. So every little while the house is gonna move to another place with no warnings or whatsoever. So the only thing that they have to do, like the only thing that they have to do, the things that they do with that house is that every night they're gonna open the gates to the afterworld to help the people who died, you know, the ghosts, to go to that world to rest, etc. And Marinka is just like, yeah, but I don't want to do that. Why do I have to do that just because I was burned that in that family kind of thing? I don't want to do that. And Baba Yaga is actually her grandmother, and she's like, I don't care. And it's so powerful because I really enjoy the story, not because it had to do with Russian folklore, even if it was one of the reasons. It has to do with something I grew up with, but also because the kid here acts as a kid, and she's like, I don't want to do that, so I don't do that. Yeah, maybe that's my destiny, maybe that's what people want to do, me to do, or maybe that's something I have to do in order to keep balance in the world or whatever, but I don't want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it, I don't care. So it's really, I don't know how to say, but I felt the truth in that story, and the real kids struggling, understanding what's good and bad for them, or for the world in general, or for their surroundings, etc. I really loved it. It's about friendship and family and duties and magic and Russian folklore. Really enjoyed it. Then Always by Yumi Yamamoto, a very short comic graphic novel, very powerful. Yes, it has only 34 pages, but it's everything you need in a graphic novel. It's so short, but you're gonna feel so much. Basically the story of a girl going back home and seeing her ex at the door waiting for her, and they're gonna get back to the old routine until he asks her something he wasn't supposed to ask, or she wasn't expecting, and it's gonna start there. And it's so insane how much you're gonna feel while reading those 34 pages. Like, that's just insane. And the art is absolutely amazing. And yes, Yumi Yamamoto is a friend, and yes, I loved her book, but that's not the reason why. If I didn't like it, I would have told her. But it is just like, I loved it so much. So I would definitely recommend that one. And the last one I'm gonna talk about is actually The Polar Bear Explorers Club by Alex Bell, a middle grade pop fantasy. Yeah. So yeah, this is basically the story of a girl, Stella Starfleet Pearl, who wants to be an explorer, but she cannot be an explorer because she's a girl. She cannot be one, but she's gonna manage to become one with her father, because her father is actually already a member of the Polar Bear Explorers Club. And yeah, she's gonna go on an adventure, and she's gonna discover adventure, yes, but family secrets kind of thing, but also like friendship and what's right and what's wrong, making decisions for others but for yourself as well, knowing what's better, etc, etc. I really loved that adventure. I finished the entire series, to tell you the truth. I listened to the audiobook actually, so I started reading that book, then I switched to the audiobook on script and finished the sequel and the third book as audiobooks as well. I really enjoyed them. Will really recommend them. If you're looking for heartwarming, like little middle grade books, and you know, cozy setting. For me, winter is a cozy setting, but it's easy to read, easy to enjoy. It's I don't know, it was so magical. Like, join the explorers on an unforgettable adventure across the ice. It was just that. Like, people say probably my best book of the year so far, rightly imagined for fans of Philip Pullman. True. Channels everything from Lemony Snicket to J.K. Rowling, and I mean, I loved it, and I discovered what garbage was actually, and you're gonna discover so many stuff. Like, I'm not gonna say anything because spoilers, but frostbite is a thing and it's not what you think it is and that type of thing. But yeah, I would definitely recommend all the books actually I showed you here. I think I showed you all the 15 books I was meaning to. If not, I'm gonna include something here. If yes, wow, well done Sasha, I did the job. But yeah, so I had reading wise a pretty amazing year because I have so many new favorites and so many new series I want to continue with, etc, etc, and I really hope that 2020 is going to bring more amazing books. So yeah, not that I need to buy more books, but you know what I mean. Let me know in the comment section what was your favorite book of 2019, if you can only pick one of the few that you loved in 2019. So if you're doing like the Howling Pack challenge and reading your community or people around you favorite books of 2019, maybe you could pick one of these so you can add one book to your TBR. But yeah, if you want more information about that, I will link the video down below so you have all the information. And in the video, I actually said that it is a readathon, but it's actually a challenge. But read the description box, everything is in there. But yeah, well, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to be a part of the pack. Talk to me in the comment section as usual. And until next time, take care, wolves. Bye.